Come say hi. Come here if you're gonna be disruptive. Everyone say hello to Willow. She was causing trouble today because I let her come into the studio. And now she's screaming. What's the matter? Go ahead. Well, hello, Bad Book Club friends, and welcome back to your favorite podcast with your favorite bookworm, Jade. I have had some fun stuff happen to me this week. First and foremost, I have an AirPods case that is shaped like an ice cream, and for some reason, it makes me extremely happy. I have no idea why. Also, I'm sipping on some tea today in my cute little cup, and it's all monogrammed. Don't you love the sound of that? It's amazing. I bet it sounds amazing in your earbuds. And what else has happened to me? Oh, I am now podcasting for an official company in Dallas, which is extremely cool. I am so excited about that. And I got into MFA programs this month. I have been accepted to the Masters in Writing Fiction at Vermont College of Fine Arts, which is so exciting. I've been wanting an MFA for a long time, but personal story, I graduated college, and then me and my now husband, he proposed to me a couple months after we graduated, and I moved to Dallas, and I thought, hey, well, I probably don't want to be working on a master's while I'm also planning a wedding, so I'll do it after the wedding. And the week of our wedding was COVID, and the whole city of Dallas shut down. And so, and then a year later, we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary. A year later, I've now gotten into master's programs. It was always part of my plan. It was what I wanted to do. It just took me 2 years to get there because life happened. So it took me a hot minute, but I'm there. I am working on it now. Classes start soon. Everything is coming up, Jade and Bad Book Club and stuff. I'm in a cozy chair today. I'm very excited about today's episode. I'm also using a Bad Book Club pillow. I make merch. I design it all myself. I designed the logo for this podcast, and you can support the podcast if you like it by buying a t-shirt or a pillow, or I have phone cases or whatever you want to do. I have on Bad Book Club. I will link it below in the show notes, and if you go, I would appreciate it more than you know. I'd also appreciate it if you've been liking this podcast, if you could subscribe, review it on iTunes, and recommend it to a friend. It helps out so much. And if you want even more Bad Book Club, I am now posting live videos on YouTube of me recording these episodes. So sometimes you get bloopers or just extras of me being silly that I cut out in podcast audio. And you'll get to see a little picture of me holding up the Bad Book Club pillow just now. And also you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter and all the socials at Bad Book Club Pod. So thank you so much, and I'll stop talking to you about this now, and we can actually start on this week's episode, which is The Hunger Games. Wasn't that an amazing intro? It definitely was not me. It was definitely an official soundtrack, but I'm talking to you about The Hunger Games today. Now, who doesn't know The Hunger Games? It's a huge deal. Suzanne Collins was book swept the nation, and it was a sensation, and they made a ton of movies, as you've probably heard. Now, the movies are actually super close in terms of plot to the book. So if you want to know what happens in the book, it's very similar to the movies. And I actually have some thoughts about the movies, and I'll be doing a comparison probably a reaction video to the movies if you guys want, on my Patreon page for Bad Book Club. So you can also support the podcast by doing that and go and say hi and support the podcast, and then you can watch me being silly. The Patreon right now is a little bare bones. As you can probably see, I've had a bit of a weird month. I've gotten a new job and I applied to master's programs. It's a bit crazy, but I am on track for more Bad Book Club stuff, and I'm super excited for where it's going. So if you want more Bad Book Club stuff, if you want to hear about possible more episodes and extras, I might do I have in mind a Percy Jackson movie watching, which will be so funny because that movie is just not at all related to the book. They took it and they're based on a book and made their own movie about it, but whatever. I was thinking I might do a reaction there. So that'll be on Patreon if you're interested. So, Hunger Games. Let's talk about it. This is where I paused the recording and pull up my my Google Docs. Excuse me, and information. So gotta pull it up. Gotta pull it up. Don't worry about that. It's nothing. All right. How are you guys doing today? I'm doing good. I'm a little sleepy. I'm gonna be honest. I'm a little sleepy. But that's what tea is for. Sorry for the squeak. This is what extras you get. It's just me staring at my phone. Riveting. 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 Okay. Now we can get started. Wait. No, we can't, because I didn't even pull up half of what I want to do. Ooh. Okay. Okay. Cool beans. I forgot that this happened. Okay. Yay. So let's start with some facts about Suzanne Collins. I have actually been reading Suzanne Collins for a long time because she wrote another series that's far lesser known, but honestly, in my opinion, maybe better. It's called Gregor the Overlander. It is so good. It's awesome. It's about this kid. Honestly, it's been ages since I've read it. Maybe I need to reread it. But it's about this kid who it's like Narnia. He discovers like a whole world. And it's this underground world, and it's really cool. There's like a prophecy. I inhaled the books when I was younger, like so fast. It was so good. I honestly don't know how well they hold up because, like I said, I haven't read them in a long time. But I think reading it, I read the Gregor the Overland series before the Hunger Games series, but I think I still like Gregor the Overlander better, at least in my memory of having read both of those series. The ages I read them, I don't know, I guess they just work out so that I like Gregor better. So she's super famous for that series, but no one really knew it, just me, because I'm a nerd. And then she came out with the Hunger Games. And to be honest, I reread this, and it was different than I reread it in high school. But it took me a long time to get it to read it in high school, because when I was younger, still kind of now too, if a book is like forced down my throat, if people are like, you have to read this book, oh my god, it's so you have to read it. I'm like, I don't have to read anything. Like, please stop. You're being really extra. And I tend to think that books that are really hyped are actually like not that good. Like not to throw shade at hyped books. Like if I ever write a book, I hope it's hyped. So like, so I'm not saying it's bad. And certainly books that I've read that have been hyped are not bad. It's just that books, like, they're books. They can't live up to the hype of hundreds of thousands of people screeching about it. Your expectations are just going to be too high. It's not the book's fault. It's just that if you're told it's amazing and you read it, you go, oh, that's all it was? And that's usually how I feel when I read really, really famous or hype books. And I try to keep that in mind when I'm reading. But when I first read it, it took me a while to get there, but I do remember really liking it. And I remember, for me, some people are going to feel differently. A lot of people have two opinions about the series total. There's 3 books, and some people think they get better as they go, and some people think they get worse as they go. And I was one of the people who thought it got worse. And I will explain. You will see why. In the meantime, let's just talk about summary instead. So since the book really closely follows the movie, or the movie really closely follows the book, I'm not going to dive in really too deep. I'm going to give you like the biggest points of it, because I'm sure you've already heard of it in popular culture. It's incredible. So like, I'm sure you don't need me to do like the play-by-play. So anyway, sorry, I thought that was my cat yelling at me. She's just being dramatic. It starts on the day of the reaping. So what is the reaping day, Jade? What is it? So this is a dystopian novel, a young adult dystopian novel. It is this like story about these 12 districts in Pan Am, and each year they have this thing where a girl and a boy between the ages of, I think 12 and 18, I think 12 to 18? Yeah, 12 to 18 get like randomly selected from each district to compete in a battle royale, and and that's the Hunger Games. So it's kind of a big deal. And they're really rich, and it's like a reality TV show. Like, everyone watches it happen, and it's real. They kill each other, so it's really intense. So it starts out on the day of the reaping, which is whenever they choose who is going to the Hunger Games. I think this is a little already starting out the book tells you, I haven't even told you about the characters yet. I'll start with that first. So the main character is Katniss, and there's her mom, who honestly, it doesn't even bother, you don't need to know her name. And then her sister, Prue, is that her name? I don't know why Prim. Prim, I don't know why I blanked. So her sister, Prim, who's younger than her. And her mom is just not like present. She's not like mentally able to be present. She's just kind of like a vegetable. She just kind of sits there. Even when I was younger, I thought that was crazy. And I also thought that it was kind of dumb. I get it, but if you're gonna have a character who doesn't do anything, you might as well just not have a character. You know what I mean? Just in terms of like writing stance. So like if I'm gonna make a character that just sits there, why even bother? You know what I mean? And that's mostly what her mom does. Like I told you, you don't even have to know her name. She doesn't do anything interesting. We get her story for like half a chapter. Like it's just not that interesting. So don't get me wrong, I think it makes sense, but like, it would not change the story at all to remove the mom. And if it's not going to change the story, you shouldn't include it. So that's my personal preference. So anyway, they go to the reaping, and lo and behold, what happens? They pull Prim's name out of the bowl, her little sister. So she goes, I volunteer as tribute. And she steps in place for her sister, and she knows this is going to be a death sentence. Katniss does. Facts about Katniss. She is amazing with a bow and arrow. She's best friends with this guy named Gale, and she loves her sister. And other fact about her, I don't like her. That's my opinion, but I am not a Katniss fan. And you'll see, I'll explain to you why I'm not a Katniss fan as we go through this series, but I'll save it for the moment. So she volunteers as tribute, and the boy they choose from her district is Pita, like pita bread, and he is a baker. Wow, I see what she did there. And he is, chosen for tribute. And she remembers this time where she was literally starving because their district is so poor. And each district kind of has like a thing they produce. So like coal or like silk, or I don't know all the materials, but it's stuff like that. And I think hers is coal, if I'm correct. I don't care that much. And she's starving because like her dad's not around, and like her mom's not doing anything. And she's a pretty good hunter, but I think this must have been before that. And Peta's mom, the baker, burned some bread, and he was supposed to throw it out, and instead he saw her on the street and gave it to her, and his mom beat him for that. Because she was like, why would you do that? So anyway, Katniss has this memory of Peta basically being nice to her. That's basically what that means. And now she's a part of it. She is going to the Hunger Games, which is pretty crazy. Now, the Hunger Games themselves is not an original concept, a battle royale, but it is originally done in that I've never seen it set in a dystopian time frame before. I feel like the battle royale is a very like gladiator mindset type of thing. So it is interesting to see it placed into like dystopian world. I've heard of this book compared relentlessly to this manga called Battle Royale. I have not read it, but it doesn't surprise me that something called Battle Royale would be similar to something called the Hunger Games. So, what can you do? What else? What else did I think while I was reading? I think it's good. I think it starts out fast. I do think this is like gonna be a lot of what I say about this book is gonna be like either you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I agree, or you're gonna be like, Jade, how dare you? And I think a lot of people who've read this might be like, Jade, how dare you? But I am not the biggest fan of Prim. I think that this young adult novel suffers from young adult novel syndrome, which is that the pacing is fast enough that you kind of risk character depth. So don't get me wrong, I love a fast-paced book. I think a fast-paced book is wonderful because I love like burning through books. It's so good, and it catches you really fast, right? But part of the problem is we see Katniss like basically put herself at risk for a person we don't know. We don't know Prim. We don't know her. We don't have any memories of Katniss and Prim. We don't get any backstory. We get like a couple conversations, and in my personal opinion, it's just not enough. Sometimes I need more interaction, more emotional depth with the character to understand why they're making the choices that they make. I think that this book does not age very well either, because when I was younger, I would not have cared about that, but I care about that now. I think that she sacrifices a lot of character depth, and that's one of my biggest issues with this novel, I think. But I'll get into that during my analysis. I'm not doing my summary. Let me go back to my notes. Okay. So anyway, Katniss says goodbye to her mom and to Prim, and she takes this Mockingjay pin with her, which is like, you know, like, it's a recurring symbol, you know, and she says goodbye to her friend Gale, handsome Gale, and handsome Peeta, who she's going to the Hunger Games with, and she's already like, oh no, two handsome men, who am I gonna love / be friends with? And so, again, we have can you believe it, a love triangle. Anywho, they ride this bullet train to the Capitol, and they meet two more characters, Effie Trinket, which is an interesting name, and Hamish Abernathy, like a drunk mentor who's won the Hunger Games in the past. So he's supposed to like help them and give them like, you know, like, what's it called when you're like in chess? What is it? I feel like this means I'm not good at it if I can't even remember what it was called. All I'm thinking of is the word scheme. It's not schemes, strategies. Strategies. He's supposed to give them like the correct strategies and like what to do. And they meet their stylist, Cinna. I believe that's how you pronounce it, Cinna. And he's like a cool man. He wears some makeup and he's like supposed to be their stylist. And because this is a reality TV show that they're going on. It's like it's called The Hunger Games. It's a very serious, but it's like a reality TV show for the richer districts. And the richer districts also have to put up kids, but they like the kids they put up are like excited to go because they're like, I'm gonna win. This is gonna bring honor to my family. And all the poor districts are like, I don't want to go. I don't care about Panem. You know, like, why would I care? So that's just the way it goes. Anyway, so they meet Cinna, and Katniss and Peeta are presented from the beginning as like a pair. You know, like a couple together by everything. And when they go through the opening ceremonies, they go through this like chariot. They're holding hands on this chariot, and Cinna dresses them in outfits that like burst into flames as they go. And it's like very spectacular, and they're already favorites because now they're like a pair and they're flaming, and she gets nicknamed the Girl on Fire. So it's pretty cool beans. I know, right? Anyway, I wish I could enter a room like that. That would be pretty cool. I'd be a little scared of setting my hair on fire, but it might be worth it, you know? And anyway, they start to get to like training. So they have this whole thing where they're going to train you first, and you get to like do this, like, you're not in the Hunger Games yet. The Hunger Games takes place in like this arena, and they don't know what the arena will be. But in the days leading up to the arena, they have all that stuff like the opening ceremonies, and they have like training where they can show off their skills or they can hide their skills to intimidate like teammates, and they get like reviewed by a committee and they assign them like a danger rating. So in that time, Hamish Abernathy says, do not show your strengths. Don't do it. Hide them from the people that you're working with. Some people think differently though. And they I'll get to that. But some teammates, what is it? Enemies when you're fighting someone? I'm blanking on words today. Sometimes when I'm an English major and when I'm sleepy, I tend to forget words. Let's see. What is it called when you're like against someone? They're against someone's. Some of them think that differently. But Peeta and Katniss kind of like appear inseparable, and Katniss can't quite tell if it's because Peeta actually likes her or if he's doing it for the cameras and for the effect, because obviously Effie and Hamish think that effect is very good, so she's not sure exactly what Peeta's thinking. Peeta's not like a really outspoken person. Neither is Katniss, for that matter. But we do meet all of our crazy, like, what are they called? Against someone's? I'm upset. But anyway, they also have interviews. So they do this interview with like a TV caster. It's like if you were on Jay Leno right before you're gonna go to like a battle royale and kill a bunch of people. It's very like surreal. And it's very spooky. I honestly don't know how believable it is, in all honesty, to say that every single year, I think it's every year. No, it's every year. I don't know why I blanked on that for a second. So every year they go and they pick up children. I think that's the key. I don't know if it's believable to say that people will be like, yeah, you can take my kids, no problem. Like, you know, I know it's supposed to be like a dictatorship type of vibe, but I also don't know if the rich parts of town would be so okay with it. You know, like, it's just questionable to me. I think it would make more sense if it was like every 10 years or every 5 years. I don't know if every single year is really believable that there wouldn't be like some sort of like response to that. But that's just me. I don't know. Maybe that's my personal stand. I mean, I bet it would be difficult to fight a bunch of people, but who knows? I don't know what's worth it. Seems crazy. Anyway, they have this interview with like, you know, like, and they're like, oh, how are you? And PETA is like, oh, hey, like, I don't want to work, like, let's not train together. And Katniss is like, okay, that's kind of hurtful, but we don't have to practice together and like coach with Haymitch together. And then during their interview, PETA, Kitty, Willow is attacking the back of my chair. PETA says he's in love with Katniss, and Katniss is like, what? And so now she's not sure. She's like, what are you saying? And after the interview, she's so pissed. She's really angry because PETA made her look weak. I have some issues with this. This is what I have issues with, okay? I don't, first of all, I said earlier I don't like Katniss. Here's why. There are some books for me where I feel like the character gets upset about stuff that I don't understand being upset about, and then I feel like they don't get upset about stuff that would really upset me. So maybe that's just like a difference in priorities. But I find it really difficult to read books with a main character who does this, where they're like really mad and I don't understand why. Like, and on top of that too, Katniss is not a person who like knows what she's feeling, expresses herself, says anything. Like in all honesty, I think Katniss is kind of like a dud almost. Like I think as a character, she's more of like a vessel for the reader. Like she's less, you know, she doesn't really come up with her own, she comes up with her own ideas. I'm being unfair. I just don't really like her. I don't know how to tell you other than that, like my rereading of her, especially this time, I just was like, I'm not the biggest fan. Like I think she's okay, but I also think she's like doing, I don't know. It's hard to explain. I just don't really like her. I feel like she, like I said, she gets upset about stuff I wouldn't get upset about. I feel like her actions later in the novel are really questionable. I feel like a lot of the times she does stuff and I'm like, ew, why are you doing that? And that's like what I'm thinking all the time. And I feel like she's kind of dumb. That's kind of what it is. I feel like she is not observant at all. And I don't like reading characters where I feel like I, as a reader, know something that the main character should know and is just not picking up on. Like if I, as a reader, can see it, like you as a person in the room should be able to see it. So like PETA's like, oh, I'm in love with her. And as a reader, I'm like, he's telling the truth. And she's like, how dare you make me look weak on TV? And I don't know if he's telling the truth. And I'm like, okay, you could ask him first. Like, I don't understand why you wouldn't just like, this is like a sitcom where everyone misunderstands each other, and if everyone had literally just like asked a question instead of assuming something, then you could have fixed it from step one. Like step one, we could solve this. You could ask him, but she's not gonna. And she gets all like mad at him, and then Haymitch is like, and Cinna are both like, no, this was good. He made you appear like desirable. And she's like, fine. And so anyway, the Hunger Games. Oh, the Hunger Games. Also, I forgot about her little preview with the people. She meets like a lot of her teammates. I'm forgetting the word. At the end of this podcast, I'm going to remember the word, but she meets all of her opponents. She meets them all and during training, and there's some really scary ones. Like there's a girl who like shaved her teeth so that she has like a spiky smile, which is super scary. But there's also like a young girl named like Rue who's like really shy, and she's like climbs stuff really well. And it's just, you know, so yeah, it's just a lot of different people, but they have their like assessment, you know, and it's one-on-one. So she does stuff and they're supposed to watch her, and it's like this room full of people are supposed to watch her do stuff. And until now, she hasn't picked up a bow and arrow because that's her strength. So during her assessment, she comes in and she starts doing stuff with her bow and arrow, and no one is watching. And she's like, how are you going to assess me if no one is paying attention? And so she shoots an arrow into the room where they're all standing and hits, I think, the apple that's sitting in like a baked pig's mouth, you know, like the little, like the classic like pig with the apple in its mouth, you know, and she hits that apple. I believe that's what she hits, and all of them are like, oh, and she's like, she just walks out. And so they award her an 11 out of 12 of scariness, which is like kind of a big deal because like I don't think anyone thought she was that scary because she hasn't done her bow and arrow in front of anyone else yet. So everyone's like, whoa. In terms of PETA, he was told not to lift heavy things because he's super strong. So I guess he does well also in the assessment. Anywho, wait, I'm doubting myself. Was she awarded an 11 because she's dangerous or an 11 because she's bad? No. It's because she's dangerous. Wait, I'm wondering if I read this book wrong right now. Wait, hold on. Wait, Katniss? I'm Googling this right now. Katniss, 11 score good? Question mark? Wait, did I read that wrong? Okay, wait. Yeah, okay, so PETA gets an 8. Yeah. Wait. 12 being the best. Okay, yes. Okay. Okay, good. I was like, wait, did I read that wrong? Sorry, I'm supposed to have the answers for you, but I just assumed when I was reading, and I didn't actually like look closely at what it was, and then I was trying to tell you guys, and so long story short. Anyway, she gets an 11. And they're like, okay, like, she's like, cool, I'm dangerous, so that's cool. And then it's time for the Hunger Games, all right? They rise up through these, like, this, like, raising, like, elevator platform into the arena. And the arena is completely controlled by the, like, people in charge. And so they can control the weather, they can start fires, they can remove water, and there are TVs hidden everywhere for the reality TV show so that you can, like, watch them. Excuse me. And something else that's important is that you can, like, people who are watching the show, if you're like super rich, you can like send a gift to like a character to help them out, which is pretty crazy. So wild. It's an original idea, I think, to put the Battle Royale into a TV show. So I do like that, but I think that, I don't know. I think that we've had a good, like, most of the book so far has been like laying the groundwork for this. When they get into the arena is when I get really interested. Like before it was really good before this as well in terms of like keeping me interested. This is a book that you should read on a plane. I'm serious. If you go on a plane, you should take this book with you. You'll have such a good time. The time will pass quickly. Like it's a really great read if you want something like fast and fun because it is engaging. I think it sacrifices its depth to be engaging, which is kind of a bummer, but I still like the storyline. I think most books are fun. This is just a fun book. I don't have super high expectations for it. I wish I liked the characters more, but that's really it. Anyway, they raise up out of the ground. Sorry, back to the story. They raise up out of the ground, and they're all of the you know, what are they called? The sacrifices, I guess. I don't know. The kids who are in this, the opponents or whatever, they all rise up out of the ground around this huge metal cornucopia. If you don't know what a cornucopia is, it's like this great like horn thing. Like, you know, like when Vikings have like a horn, they're like, brr, brr. That sounds like a foghorn. It's like that, but it's like huge. You can stand on it. It's like huge, like a picture house sized. And inside there's like all this stuff, like bags and backpacks, weapons, and all this stuff. And Haymitch told PETA and Katniss, do not go toward the cornucopia. You will die. Like, you'll die if you go towards the cornucopia instead of just running away. And so Katniss and PETA are going to do that. But then Katniss catches sight of a bow and arrow, like kind of near her. And she's like, I'm going to go for it. But then she looks at PETA right as they sound like the bell that lets them go. And he shakes his head at her. He's like, don't do that. And so she gets like, she doesn't have enough time to grab it anymore. So she grabs his backpack and then she runs into the woods and just keeps on running all day long. And she has this like thought. She's like, did PETA purposefully mess me up? And this is another time where I'm like, you dumbass. Like, I am so irritated by this. Like, I'm like, I am irritated by a person who assumes everything incorrectly. Like, it's so clear to me that PETA is serious in his affections, that he likes you. Like, I don't understand why you're having all these doubts. Like, and she just, I think it's because she assumes the literal worst. It's not that she has doubts. She assumes that he's literally the worst. It's he either loves her or he's literally like a villain. And I'm like, can there not be like an in-between? Like, wait, I mean, I think he loves you anyway, but like to assume he's a villain because he shook his head at you is crazy. Like, that's just not, it's not correlated. So anyway, she's running all day. She's not able to find water. And the first night she climbs up into a tree and she sleeps in a tree, which I think is very smart. and she sees this like this group called that she calls the Careers, and they're the tributes from like the wealthier districts. They formed like an alliance, and Peeta is with them, and she's like, I can't trust him now. She's like, I can't. He's obviously a bad guy. He was faking all of it, and anyway, I'm like, again, like a villain, like what the heck, girl? Like I don't understand what she's doing, but anyway, he's a villain, I guess. And she the next day she still can't find water. She's close to like dying from you know like thirst when she finds a pond, because part of this is called the Hunger Games, because really while people are trying to kill you, the environment is not friendly, so you're also trying to live through, you know, the environment. And she's pretty good at it, like, because she hunts a lot and stuff, but she's definitely not like an herbologist, you know, like she's not an expert. And anyway, she constantly has to figure that out. And she also has to beware of the game makers. That's what she calls them. That's what they're called. The ones who run the arena. So, like, they'll set fires or do explosions. And she has to, like, live through those things, which is crazy. And one night, she's sleeping in a tree. And that group with the Careers, they come and they find her in the tree and they pin her up there and she can't get down. And there's a girl who has a bow and arrow and she misses Katniss because she sucks with the bow and arrow. But Katniss is like, she has a bow and arrow. That's good to know. And they all sleep at the bottom of her tree because she has to come down at some point for food or water. And then she spots Rue, that little girl, the really little one. What district is she from? District 11. I have it in my notes. She's from District 11, and she's hiding in a tree nearby, and she points to Katniss at this nest of tracker jackers in the tree. Something interesting about the Mockingbird, the Hunger Games world that I appreciate about Suzanne Collins is that I think her creatures are very cool. I think her creatures are really fun. She does this in Gregor the Overlander as well. I think she's able to make up really fun, like, interesting things. And like, I think it helps build the world. I think what this book does not lack is world building. I think this world is so detailed and cool. I think she really thinks out every part of it. I think the world building is very impressive. And one of them is like the mocking jays. So like mockingbirds, blue jays, it's like a combo of the two. So like it's supposed to be genetically better. I don't know how it works. And then there's also the tracker jackers, which was also created by like the like mutations or whatever. And they're like super angry hornets, I guess, like wasps. And I forget their whole purpose for being made. I think it was they're called tracker jackers, so I think they're supposed to like track you or poison you or something. Anyway, she sees this whole like nest, like a bee's nest? A nest? What do you call those? A nest? Wait, what is it called? Oh no. Another word that I'm forgetting. I don't know. A nest, I don't know, whatever it's called. She sees one and hanging in the tree, and so she's like, thank you, Rue. And she goes up and she cuts down that nest, and it drops into the Careers, and it kills a couple of the people in there. I think it kills the girl from District 4, and then Glimmer, like a really pretty one from District 1. The names are not subtle, in all honesty. There's Glimmer. Katniss is a type of plant, so it's not surprising to me that she's a hunter. Peeta is a baker. His name is Peeta. Like, there's Gale, and he's like her hunter friend. That's like a wind, Gale. Like, none of the names are very subtle. Her sister's name is Prim. Like, if you wanted to convey like a studious little girl, Prim is what you would name her. I mean, like, the names are they're a bit much for me, in my opinion. Effie Trinket is literally like a little trinket. Like, she dresses like that. So it's like, don't get me wrong, I like names, but sometimes I'm like, think of actual names, like be a tad bit more subtle, but that's just me. I think it's still fun, still good. Anyway, so they're dead. Katniss gets stung a few times by the tracker jackers, but she's able to grab the bow and escape. And she's running, and oh, by the way, when a character dies, an opponent dies, there's like hovercrafts that come in and take away their body. So she tried to get that bow and arrow back before they could take the hovercraft could take her body away. And anyway, as she's kind of like feeling funky from the tracker jackers, she's starting to like fall over. Peeta finds her and he's like, run, like the Careers are coming. And like Cato is a super violent boy and he's like trying to kill her, and she's able to escape. So she's like, oh, are his feelings true or is it still an act? And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I don't know. Like, her constant questioning and her constant wish-washiness is just like not fun to read, in my opinion. And I also think she focuses on the wrong things. She killed like 2 people just now. And of course she's like hallucinating and having a hard time from the tracker jackers. But like also though, like she's running and she's like, oh, I don't know if PETA likes me. And I'm like, I don't understand you. Like, I don't get what you worry about. Like, I feel like she's so casual with stuff that I would be very upset about. And then she's very upset about stuff that I would not be worrying about right now. Like, whether PETA likes you is not like a thing I would be concerned about, especially since he's proven several times that he likes you. And you could have asked him at any point. I don't get it. It's like if The Bachelorette was happening and then she was like, I don't know if he likes me. And I'm like, you're on The Bachelorette. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I know that's not the purpose of this book, but I'm like, you got paired with him. He said he loves you. Like, if that was the result of training with Haymitch, like, why don't you ask him? Like, I don't get it. And on top of that, too, I thought that was strange motivation from Suzanne Collins, to make him want to train separately or coach separately with Haymitch, because it casts doubt onto PETA. But I can't think of a reason why, if PETA was in love with her, that he would do that. So like I was like, I don't know how sneaky that is. I think it might just be confusing and it might just not make sense for his character if he's actually in love. You know what I mean? So I was like, all right, to tell more of my reactions in this moment. So writer-wise, I've been told in the past, obviously write books how you want, but a tip I've learned from writing is that when you write, you have chapters where action happens, and then you have to have chapters where reactions happen. So it's the chapters where everyone sits there and reacts to whatever just happened in the last chapter. There are little to no reactionary chapters, and that might be because it's a young adult novel, but she has so many reactions like this about PETA that I'm kind of like, why are there no reactionary chapters if you're going to be thinking about PETA this much? Like, why aren't you thinking about other stuff this much? Like, she did this for her sister. She never talks about her. I wish we got flashbacks, you know, like moments with her sister. Like, we get remembrances because Rue reminds her of her sister, but that's not really the same thing. I had a stronger connection to Rue in the novel than I do to Prim, the entire 3 novels in the series, not to ruin the series for you, but I was more connected with Rue than I was ever connected with Prim. Also, her name is Rue. Do you really can take a wild guess as to what happens to Rue? Her name is Rue. You guys know what Rue means, right? I'm like, oh God. I wish that she had named people a little different. I feel like that kind of ruined the book for me a little. I was like, oh, Rue dies. And I remember that as soon as I read the name Rue. Sorry I spoiled it for you, but I was going to spoil it anyway, so I'm not that sorry. But I was like, her name is Rue. Like, okay, but it's fine. It's fine. So what does she do? She runs away from Cato, and she's again like, I wonder if he likes me. And she passes out, and when she wakes up, she's there with Rue, who has covered her like tracker jacker stings in like these little leaves. And Katniss is like, oh, thank you, because they're like, I guess like little numbing, like just like an herb concoction for that. And she forms an alliance with Rue because Rue can't really hunt, so she helps Rue eat and stuff, and because Rue's so small and she's so tiny, but she is really like sneaky, so that's how she's been alive this whole time. And she knows that she could trust Katniss because Katniss has that Mockingjay pin, so she's like, I knew you were trustworthy ones. I love Mockingjays, and it's really adorable. They start to communicate with each other through the trees, through the Mockingjays, because Mockingjays copy you because they're mocking. So if they like sing something, Mockingjays will sing it through the trees. So she and Rue can send each other messages with the Mockingjays, which was a very cool mechanic in the book. I thought that was a cute idea. I thought it showed ingenuity in the characters. I really like Rue. I thought it was great. And anyway, they decide we're going to destroy the career's food supply at the cornucopia because they kind of set up camp there. And she's like, let's destroy it all. Let's sabotage them. Let's go on the offensive, which I think is an interesting choice for them at the moment. I don't know if it makes Katniss more likable or not, because in order for Katniss to even be a hero in this, Suzanne Collins has made almost all the other opponents bad guys. I kind of wish we had more middling guys, just like people who don't want to be there. Like, I don't know, they're either like gung-ho or they're Katniss, and it's like kind of no one else, you know? So anyway, it's kind of an offensive maneuver from Katniss, our frightened babe in the woods, but she decides that that's what they're going to do. And they set off the career's own booby traps, and they destroy almost all their food, and Katniss actually loses hearing in her left ear for a while. And when she gets back to camp, Rue's not there. And she's like, oh no, what's happening? And she follows Rue's screams, and that boy like sends a spear into Rue and kills her. And Katniss is like, oh no, and she kills him in return with her bow and arrow. And she sings to Rue, and she decorates her body with flowers. And that is a super huge deal to the Capitol. They are pissed. This is like an act of rebellion, because you have to remember this is a reality TV show. People are not supposed to feel bad for the competitors. You're supposed to want them to die. You're supposed to want them at each other's throats. You're supposed to want the drama. You are not supposed to cry at this little girl, because it definitely makes the Capitol the bad guys. And they don't want to be the bad guys. They are the bad guys, but they don't want to be seen that way. They want to be seen as, you know, like your trustworthy government who sets up like exciting, you know, like adventures for you. And yeah, so everyone is like, no crying, because Rue is dead, decorates her body in flowers. So they're supposed to kill each other, not form friendships, and the Capitol's super mad. And there's 6 people left. It's Katniss, Peeta, Claudius, the games announcer, including Katniss, sorry, this is a confusing sentence to read. So there's 6 people left, but Katniss and Peeta are both part of the 6. And then Claudius, who I haven't told you about him really, he's like the game announcer guy. He's like, kind of like those guys at sports who like sit behind a desk and make guesses. That's him for the games. He says that there's a new rule. This year, 2 tributes can win as long as they come from the same district. What? So Katniss goes to find Peeta, because they can win if they stay together, right? So they go, and she finds out that he is super badly injured by Cato. And she finds him in bad shape. And he's like, oh, he's also camouflaged in the mud, because he used to decorate cakes. It's actually a really cute, like, character fact. And so he's able to, like, camouflage himself really well with his environment, because he used to be, like, a cake decorator. So he's, like, really in the mud, and she does not see him at all. And he has this huge gash on his leg. And you know what? I'm a little like, Katniss, why aren't you doing better? Like, you know what I mean? Like, not to throw shade at Katniss here, but Peeta was like hurt. He's helped her several times in these games. You know, like he told her to leave Cato because Cato's on the way. He told her not to go for that bow and arrow. Like, clearly he's trying to help her. And he has been, like, dying from this gash on his leg for days, and she hasn't been anywhere near him or worried about him or checked in on him at all. What are you doing? Like, I'm like, ugh, just not the hypocrisy, I guess the unevenness, you know, like, she doesn't do anything for him. She's like standoffish. She thinks the worst about him. And yet he keeps like helping her and saving her life. He's just dying in the mud. She's like, oh, there you are. I only came looking for you after they made an announcement about it. Like, you couldn't have gone looking for him earlier than that. Like, wouldn't you and Rue and him have gotten along better, all 3 of you? Like, I don't know, but I know that it was like a thing or whatever. And like, they're in the woods. It's hard to find him, but like, still, like, I feel like she could have made an effort. It didn't have to succeed. An effort could have been made, is what I'm saying. Anyway, she takes him into like this cave where he can hopefully heal and like stay up. But she starts to like do romantic things, because she's hoping that if she does romantic things, that sponsors and watchers might send gifts. This is also a time where I don't like Katniss. This like manipulative, like, this guy has said he's loved me on TV. I don't know if he does or not, but I'm still going to fake it to win. I understand survival. I get that. But like, you guys could have talked about this before. Like, they kind of can't, but they also kind of can't. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you guys could have figured it out. Like, even if you were on camera from day 1 on the train, like, slip each other notes. I don't know what to tell you. Like, you could figure it out. You could, I don't know. It seems like sleazy in my opinion. And from a main character, it's kind of a bummer because I haven't actually seen that much fun stuff from her. The most I've ever liked her so far is when she shot an arrow through the game master area during her assessment, because she did something cool and she actually made an action happen. And she does a lot of other stuff too, to be fair, but it's just most of it is she's mostly just getting by in the games. And then she comes here and she's like, I'll use him. It's that thought process of I'll use him. Even if it's to keep him alive, that sentence is just not nice to hear go through a main character's head. It's just not nice. So anyway, she's like, I'll give the audience what they want. And she flirts with him and she kisses him and she talks sweetly to him. And he starts to get worse. So Katniss is like, he's not going to live without medication. And then the game masters, they make another announcement. There will be a feast at the cornucopia at dawn, and there'll be backpacks for each district containing something that they desperately need. And Katniss is like, mine definitely has medicine in it for Peeta because he's about to die right now. So most definitely it has medicine. I have to go to the cornucopia. But Peeta's like, don't go. You're gonna die. All of them are gonna be all in the same place. Don't go to the cornucopia for me. And she's like, okay. And she gets this gift from a sponsor, Hamish, and it's sleeping syrup, and it's in a little broth, I believe. And so she feeds it to Peeta, and he goes to sleep. And the next morning she goes to get the backpack. And she is actually confronted by Clove, a girl from District 2. I have notes because, there's too many names. There's a lot of names in this book. I kind of wish we had had a smaller cast in a way, because I would have gotten to know each of the bad guys just more. Having 2 from each district, and there are 12 districts, is 24 kids. In a book that's only, 200-something pages long? Let's look. How long is this book? Let's see. It's 370. It's just not really long enough for me to feel like I got to know any of the characters well, except for Rue. Cato's kind of a butt, and a couple others that I heard the name of a lot. So you don't feel any sadness when they die, which is maybe the point, because we don't want to hate Katniss. So maybe Suzanne Collins was like, if I make them not know these characters and they die, they won't be mad at Katniss for being a killer. But even then, I still wish it'd be more. I would know who she's talking about. Sometimes she'd be like, Clove attacks, and I'd be like, who's Clove? I don't remember who that is. It's it loses its impact sometimes if I don't even know which character is which. Anyway, Clove and her have this big fight, and Thresh, the boy from Rue's district, saves Katniss. He says, I saved you this once because, for Rue, but that's it. I'm not doing it again, so you better run. So she's like, okay, and they each take their backpack, and they run away. And she goes back to the cave, and the medicine heals Peeta. Yay, Peeta's healed. And they do hunting and gathering in the woods. And Katniss is like, oh, I miss Gale. Here's another issue that I have with this story, all right? I don't know Gale. I don't know Gale at all. I never understood why there was even a triangle if we never get to see Gale. We have Gale for 2 chapters. We have Peeta for the entire book. I understand that he's a friend, but it's just frustrating to read a character where half of her heart is hung up on a guy that I, as a reader, have barely met, barely know. I'm watching Peeta love you, and you're all hung up on Gale, a character I've never met before. This is another reason why I thought the beginning was so fast. I was like, I wish it was a teeny bit slower, because I could have gotten to know Prim, could have gotten to know the mom, could have gotten to know Gale. All 3 of those people, I don't know them at all. I don't know them well. I don't understand what they're bringing to the story, other than an anchor for her of home. I guess she'd be aimless without them, but I just wish that there was a stronger connection as a reader to the people that she claims to be the closest to. So it's annoying to constantly hear about Gale and have this triangle happen when one point of the triangle is not even there. It's literally just Peeta and Katniss the whole book, and Gale is just somewhere in her mind. I wish that she would make a choice as well. I also just in general don't like love triangles. I don't like females. First of all, I think it's kind of an asshole move. I just think it's not nice of a woman to if she's able to get 2 guys into her at the same time, which never happens. I mean, maybe it happens to other people sometimes, but usually it's not 2 boys have undying love for one girl, and she's like, oh, I don't know, which one. And I'm like, it's just not okay. It's not cool. If a boy did it, it would not be nice to have like two girls on the hook and be like, I don't know which one. The expectation that any boy would wait around while that happens. I'm like, that doesn't make you a good person. This is another issue I have with Katniss, where I feel like all of her choices, I'm like, you're kind of the worst. Like, I don't like you as like a person. I feel like she's not very nice. I feel like she's selfish. I know she's trying to do stuff for her own survival, but Peeta does stuff for his own survival and helps her out at the same time. Why can't she do that for him? So it's just one of those issues. The triangle is a lot to me as well. This is why I don't like Katniss. As much as I dislike Katniss, I think The Hunger Games, especially book 1, is the best book in the series. So I'm ragging on it a lot, but that's because I have a lot of feelings while I was reading it. In a way, that's good. It's fun to hate characters, in all honesty. Sometimes it is. Anyway, so they're hunting and gathering, and she's like, I miss Gale. And she's thinking of, like, Gale's reaction to her kissing Peeta, which I'm like, all right. I think, like, again, she's reacting to something that I would not react to very strongly. I feel like I would be thinking much more about, like, oh, I'm using Peeta. I feel bad about that. More than like, I wonder how the other boy I like feels about me kissing Peeta while I'm in a battle royale. Even then, I would still be thinking about the people that like have died. Maybe Rue, who died like 2 days ago. Like, I don't know. I feel like she's like compartmentalizing the wrong things. And I don't really care that much about this love story. Anyway, it's getting a little complicated, as we can see. And the only tributes left are Katniss, Peeta, and Cato. And Katniss just knows that, like, they're not going to be able to hide in the woods forever. They're going to have to approach each other. And so they do. All the game makers make the water run out, and so they have to go to, like, this lake for water, Peeta and Katniss. And then Cato comes out of the woods, like, running because some scary mutation creatures are, like, chasing him. They're, like, what do they look like? They're, like, hounds, and they can balance on their hind legs. Picture, like, the werewolves from this series with, Kate Beckinsale, is that what her name is? The one with like the Underworld series? That's always what I picture if anyone talks about wolves on their back legs. Anyway, they're chasing after him, and they all run up onto the cornucopia to like hide from them. And also they're super spooky because each of them represents one of the dead tributes. So like they look like one of them. So they have the eye color or like the hair color. And it's super spooky because you're like, ew. I wonder if they had these made or if these are actually the bodies, or like, how does this work? In this world of like crazy science, it's kind of creepy because you don't know. It's a little bit much. Super scary. Anyway, Cato reaches for Peeta to try and like, they climb up and like they're trying to get out of the reach, and Cato kind of grabs Peeta, and Katniss shoots Cato in the hand, and he falls onto the ground, and the mutations all attack him. It's like kind of gruesome. And then they eat him like through the night, and in the morning Katniss kills him with an arrow to end his suffering, which is like really dark, very dark times. And so they're the only two left, right? They must win. Nope, the game maker comes on and says, our earlier rule that 2 people can win has been revoked. One of you must die. And so this is the last reason why I really don't like Katniss. Are you ready for it? Katniss and Peeta, like, it's so dumb. Anyway, they're like, now they want, it's been the plan the whole time, first of all, the game makers. They've been like, we want these star-crossed lovers to kill each other because they're giving hope to the districts and they're being a little bit too rebellious, so we don't want them to live. So they have to kill each other and ruin this story for the watchers. We don't want them to win. So anyway, they both, like, I think what happens is, he, like, takes out his knife, and she takes out her bow and arrow and points it at him, and then he tosses his knife into the lake. So, like, he was taking his knife out to toss it away, and she took her bow and arrow out to shoot him. And I was like, what the heck? I was like, Katniss, what are you doing? This is another situation where she assumes just the worst about him, just the worst thing that he could do. And he does the best thing, and she looks like such a like an ass. Like, I'm like, what are you doing? You're making a butt of yourself. Like, I don't understand what you're doing. You just, like you were going to kill him? I know he made the first move. It's just one of those things where she just assumes the worst, and she just kind of looks dumb while Peeta's being the nice guy here and being, like, caring and friendly. Anyway, they have this idea to eat poisonous berries at the same time. Like, just kill both of them die. They're like, we resign ourselves to this. We can eat these berries and die. And so they eat these berries. I think they're called nightshade. I don't remember. Night something, I believe. And they eat the berries. And then the game maker comes on and says, no, wait. 2 people can win. You win. Because they can't have nobody win. They cannot have a no victor Hunger Games. So they spit out the berries and they win the Hunger Games. And they are brought back to the capital and they're nursed to health and their scars and burns are fixed. And Peeta loses his leg, which is kind of sad. But I actually thought it was a nice move. Sometimes people in, like I'm sure maybe you've heard the phrase. I always say, I'm sure you've heard the phrase, like, you guys are writers like me and you're nerds, but you're not. Or you could be, but you might not be, so I'll explain. But there's this phrase called murder your darlings, which means as a writer, you should be able to kill off characters. It's one of the reasons why I feel like I sometimes don't like ending books, is when you don't kill characters. If the entire cast lives, like, I know this is a dystopian novel, it's not supposed to be, like, real, but, like, it just doesn't feel believable. It doesn't feel like a satisfying ending. Like, I would say Harry Potter did all right with that. Like, a lot of them died, which was cool. But, like, in my opinion, all 3 of the kids should not have lived. Not to, like, rag on Harry Potter, but, like, in my opinion, book 7, they should have had Ron die. Hermione should have become a Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, or even the headmaster of Hogwarts, because she was so smart. And then Harry, whatever Harry wants to do. But, like I was saying, I think you should kill your darlings. So Peeta and Katniss both live, which is kind of meh. But one of them takes a heavy toll. He loses a leg. And so I feel like they come out of this not the same way they went in. And that's the important bit. I don't like it when characters escape unscathed from situations. You know, like there should be a change when characters do stuff. I don't want them to die, because I don't like it when characters die either. I'm impossible to please. But I think there should be, like, a change. There should be a toll of some kind. So he loses a leg, which is sad, but it makes sense. And they are reunited in front of an audience. But now Haymitch tells them, you have to be careful, because the Capitol will be watching you. And if your love story is not, like, true, they're gonna be mad, because they've been watching you guys, and you guys have to be madly in love. You have to be so madly in love that, like, your actions make sense, because otherwise it is direct rebellion against the districts, Panem, the game masters. You just can't do it. So anyway, in their interview, they're convincing and all that, and she's decided that Peeta is just a better actor than she is. And she's like, maybe he does like me though. And I'm like, oh my God. He literally was willing to die for you first. What? Why would that be an act? If he's acting for his survival, why would he throw his survival away? Oh my God. It's just too much. I can't deal with, like, stupidity. It's not stupidity. It's more like obliviousness. Like, I'm like, you're being, like, almost purposely obtuse at this point if you don't know what's going on. Like, I'm like, how could you not? Context clues, milady. Context clues. Anyway, she is all upset, and she's more and more confused about who she is and how she feels about Peeta, and she knows that, like, pretending to love Peeta saved her life, but she's upset that she has to continue to pretend to love him. Also, this whole pretending stuff is so sad. Clearly, Peeta actually loves her, and she's pretending, and that is just so sad. And, like, it might be one of those things where, like, as a reader, you're supposed to surmise that the character doesn't know their own feelings. So she's saying she pretends to love him, but she actually does and can't admit it to herself. And it might be one of those times, but it just comes across dumb to me. That's just what it comes across. It just comes across dumb, and it comes across mean, because the thing that she's pretending to be puts herself into, like, kind of a villainous situation where she's literally using him, and he's done nothing but help her. So it's kind of a crappy thing to do, in my opinion. Anyway, she also thinks about Gale, and she's like, I can't wait to see him. And I'm like, ew. Ew. And then Peeta finds out that Haymitch has been coaching Katniss after they've gotten back, and he's, like, betrayed and hurt, because clearly he hasn't needed coaching because he loves her. So he's like, have you been pretending? He wants to know if it's true, and he wants to know what it'll be like whenever they've gotten back. And Katniss realizes that he's distancing himself from her because of all that, and she doesn't know who she likes, Gale or Peeta, or what she's going to do with the Capitol now watching her. And that's basically the end. That's the end. And so so I have some analysis. I have some things to tell you. I just, I've given you lots of reactions. First of all, from a clearly analytical standpoint, I think this works as a dystopian novel. It's about a government kind of crushing the people below them. That's kind of what dystopian is. It's like a negative future. I think the control of like the capital is very cool. I think it's well done. I love the world building. I think it could be an allegory or metaphor for something, but in all honesty, I can't tell what it is. I think it would have made more sense, weirdly to me, if the like battle royale didn't happen between all of the districts and it just happened between the poorer districts, because that would mean that there's like a class issue happening, and there is a class issue happening, but they also have tributes. So I don't know what type of metaphor or allegory I could be doing. I just think it's supposed to be a book. It's the type of book that I think it just works better if you don't look at it too closely. It's the Hunger Games. It's for young adults. It's not, it's not Pride and Prejudice. We're not talking about romanticism here or like the, refute of feminist values. We're just talking about like a cool book and a love triangle and a love story. And like, to be fair, I think there are deep messages here about love and friendship and what the difference is. I think that there's survival and what you'll do for it. I think it's about like family and what you're willing to sacrifice. I think it's about death and grief. There are some heavy topics, to be sure. I just don't know if there's like an overall allegory or metaphor here to be found. I think you could make arguments for several different things. What else analytically? I don't know. I think that might be all my thoughts on like a critical basis. A lot of my thoughts about it are just reactionary, and they're writing based, and like what I feel like the writer could have done differently. Like I said, I think that my number one complaint with this book is just that I don't like Katniss at all. I don't think she's a likable character. I don't think she's fun to be in the head of. Part of the reason why, I didn't mention this earlier, part of the reason why I think the books get worse as they go along is that you get more in her head and she doesn't improve, in my opinion. I think Katniss gets worse. She gets more annoying. She gets more like troublesome. She gets more kind of selfish. I've always thought that Katniss was kind of a selfish character. Everything she does is supposed to be for her family, but at the same time, she hurts everyone around her constantly. Like Peeta, she is so hung up on Peeta and she can't say anything. She doesn't give him answers. She doesn't talk about anything. She is like a statue that is like walking around hurting people's feelings and like not noticing or caring. She doesn't have a lot of emotions or thoughts. I just think she's a flat character. I think she's flat. I think that she doesn't come alive on the page. I don't think she's very fun to be in the head of. And I think it's kind of detrimental in a way because since we're seeing this through her eyes, we don't get Peeta, who I think is a much more interesting character, in all honesty. I think his motivations are different. I think that his intentions are better. Clearly she just wants to live, which is fair. I mean, it's cool to live, but like, if you're an asshole on the way, why would I as a reader like you? You know what I mean? Like, I guess maybe she's supposed to be like an anti-hero, but even then anti-heroes are kind of badass. That's kind of like their thing. Their thing is that anti-heroes do the wrong thing for the good of everybody, and they're really good at doing the wrong thing. So like, we're okay liking them, But like with Katniss, she does like okay, cool things, but she's not like very talented or amazing. And she also is just, she doesn't do anything for the good of others. She just does it for herself. She does nothing for anyone else. She like helps Rue and stuff, and she helps certain people. And like she does that for Prim. That's her best moment, in my opinion. Her volunteering as tribute is the best moment Katniss has in the whole book, and it happens right at the start. And everything she does after that is very questionable. I don't understand what she does. So I think that it's detrimental because I think she's flat, and I think it makes the other characters around her flat because you're only perceiving them how Katniss is perceiving them, and she doesn't perceive anyone very shrewdly, So I just, I don't know. Katniss's perception and it being first person, I think kind of limits it. And I'm just not a big Katniss fan. It's been my opinion since I read it in middle school. It is still my opinion now. I think the hype is about the world building, because the world building is amazing. That is so good. Suzanne Collins just crushes it at world building. The districts, the capital, Panem, like Haymitch and Effie, and just the Hunger Games themselves, like the rules, the animals, like everything about this world is so specific and believable and well written, and it is so fun to read about. I think she does world building in a very specific way that a lot of authors don't do, which is she builds it in an interesting way without it being wordy. A lot of fiction and like high fantasy have that, where like it's a world building and it's really cool, but it's so wordy. They need like 2,000 pages to tell the same story because it's so wordy. She's able to set this world up for us, and it doesn't take forever for us to get there and know what's going on. And I think that is a huge strength of this book, and I think it's why people like it so much. I also think that a weird positive of us not liking Katniss that much is that we all love the secondary characters. We really like Effie, we like Haymitch, we like Peeta, we like Rue, we like all of the secondary. I love Cinna. Like, I love all of the secondary characters. I think they could have been deeper. I think we could have been more deeply connected to literally all of them. I think Peeta is the only one who gets enough screen time for me to feel like I know him well, and even then his character surprises me in terms of like me being like, oh, I didn't know Peeta would do that. So it's just one of those things where I'm like, I don't know. But I do think, like I said, secondary characters, they're well written. I like them a lot. I wish that I had more time with them, which is not a bad thing to want. But I think that happens because I like them so much more than I like the main character. And I also wish we'd had more time at the beginning before the Reaping to get to know this third member of the Triangle, Gale, who supposedly has this like big hold on Katniss's heart, who we've not had like 2 scenes with. We have like literally 2 scenes. And I'm like, this is not enough time for me to feel an emotional connection to Gale in any way. When I talked about, I'm talking to you like you're exactly my age and you had this problem. But when I was younger and Hunger Games was a big deal, I remember like people had t-shirts with like what team they were on. It was always Team Peeta. You know why it was always Team Peeta? Because he's the one we know. We don't get to see Gale. Why would anyone be on his team? If, like, after reading this whole book with Peeta, like, no one would be on his team. We had him for 2 scenes. We have Peeta the entire book. Peeta literally almost kills himself to save her. Like, we're all on Peeta's team at this point. If you're on Team Gale, it's because you didn't read the books and you just saw the movies and you were like, which boy is prettier? And so that's why you were on Team Gale, if you were ever on Team Gale. So that's part of my issue. I think the characterization needs some help. But I think the pacing at the beginning could be slower. But I do think the pacing otherwise is well done. I think the world building is great. I have questions about first person. Maybe it would have been better not to be first person. Like maybe third person omniscient would have been cool. But also maybe not. Like maybe this is just the best way to tell a story. It's impossible for me to know because this was written from Katniss's perspective, and that's what we get. So in a way, it just is what it is. The Hunger Games. I would say that this book, if I had to give it a rating, I'd give it like a 3 or 4 out of 5. It definitely wasn't bad. I think it's a fun book. It's a book that your expectations should not be super high about. It's really fun. It's interesting. It's fast. It's engaging. This is like when you watch like an action movie at a theater, but it's like one of those really like kitschy action ones, like with, I don't know, like The Rock or something. Like your expectations aren't super high. It's not the Avengers, it's just an action movie. So this is what the Hunger Games is. It's not the Avengers. It's just an action book. It's exciting. You get cool characters, you get cool situations, and I would say you should read it if you haven't. But in all honesty, the movie's really similar. And like, unpopular opinion, I think the movie is better than the book. Do you know why I think the movie's better than the book? I think all 3 of the movies are better than the books because, like I said, I think they get worse as they go. And do you know why? It's because you aren't in Katniss's head. And that's the most annoying part, in my opinion. Unpopular opinion about this book. maybe it's just me. If you read it and you love Katniss, I understand why. She is a cool character. It's just, I feel like we are so different that I cannot connect with her. And I just don't understand what she's doing. I don't, and I feel like she's just, I just want to hit her on the head and be like, pay attention. And I get irritated with characters like that. Sometimes it works for people. It does not work for me. So this is The Hunger Games. Thank you for tuning in to Bad Book Club. I hope this episode was fun. I know that it was a little rantier than normal. I just have a lot of feelings. This is one of those books that's a teenage book, and teenage books are literally just supposed to connect with you on an emotional level. And it did in the way that I had a lot of feelings about it. So in that way, it was a success, you know? Like, it successfully did what it set out to do. It made me feel stuff. It made me feel annoyed. But it also was really fun. I liked a lot about it. So I think you have to be aware with really hyped up books like this, based on movies, books, they're not always going to be as good as what it's hyped up to be. I think it's sometimes just impossible. I don't know if I've ever read a book that 16 people recommended to me that lived up to what they said about it. I wish that people wouldn't do that sometimes, because I think books are better if you go in not knowing anything about it. But I still think this is a fun book. I think it's a fun series. I like Suzanne Collins as a writer. I'm a huge fan of Gregor the Overlander. So if you want more Suzanne Collins, if you like The Hunger Games, try Gregor, because that's a really, really fun series too. And she wrote it before this, but it's similar. It's world building, which I think she's very strong at. In any sense, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Bad Book Club. I had a really fun time talking to you about The Hunger Games. It was really fun to reread. My opinions were very the same as when I read them the first time. I think it was an easier read, of course, because it's a younger reading level for me now than it was back in the day, but it was still really fun. I'll see you next time for a fun book that I have in mind. And if you want to support the podcast, once again, just to pitch more things, follow us on social media, leave a review, tell a friend, buy some merchandise from me, watch this live video on YouTube. Any and everything is helpful. And if you want book and movie recommendations based on the episodes, you can join Patreon, and I send those out. I send like 2 movie recommendations, and then I send like a couple book recommendations for each episode that we cover. And I'm going to start doing movie reactions soon. So I'm probably going to put up like a movie reaction to Percy Jackson. I may put up one for Hunger Games, and you may get extra bonus episodes too, depending on the tier that you would sign up for. So for less than a cup of coffee, you can support Bad Book Club and really just put a smile on my face. If you leave a review, it makes me so happy. I so appreciate it. I do this all by myself. It's all just me reading books and telling you, my friends, about it. And any support is just so heartwarming for me. So I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate you sticking around. And I appreciate you listening to me rant about books, as you always do. Good night, friendos, and I'll see you soon. I'll see you next time. And goodbye, lovelies.